Steve, I want to ask you about all of that. He spouted off a big list of things. There was Amazon, military patrolling the border, President Xi, et cetera, et cetera. He has gone full circle back to the Corey Lewandowski days, in my opinion, of let Trump be Trump. He's going to say whatever is on his mind. He's going to act however he's going to act. And his poll numbers are starting to tick up. Why do you think that is?
Well, for sure, everything that he said, from the post office, not true, to the use of the military on the border. No military expert would say that's the proper use of the American military, and it would violate posse comitatus about the use of the military for law enforcement purposes in this country. But we are in the middle of a great national experiment, which is this. Can a president this incompetent, this ignorant, surrounded by people who are profoundly corrupt, equally ignorant, and inexperienced, can we have that for a period of time, years, without consequence? And so when we look at the stock market, we look at the looming trade war. There's two ways to learn about trade wars. You can learn about it by reading a history book. You can read about Smoot-Hawley tariffs and how it contributed to the Great Depression, or maybe the country needs to have an experiential learning that will see the downside consequences for the trade war that he's precipitating. We can see the downside consequences on the antagonism towards Mexico in the likely election, who's now up by 18 points, of Lopez Obrador, who certainly no friend to this country, no friend to capitalism, and maybe that precipitates a crash of the Mexican economy. When you have a president getting ready to meet Kim Jong-un, you look at the Korean Peninsula. The capacity for tragedy caused by someone as unprepared as he is immense. And history would teach us that when you act the way that Donald Trump acts, as recklessly, as incompetently, as malfeasantly, that bad things will ultimately happen. And maybe we're on the front edge of that in this country.
And before the market crashes, that's when the guardrails come off. That's when people are feeling fat and happy. And when you watch the president talk about trade deficits, and he clearly doesn't understand them, a trade deficit and a budget deficit are not the same thing. And let's remind the president that the trade deficit between the United States and China has grown since he's been in office. So when you someone say, I'm a business guy who knows a lot about business, we're reminded that he's a businessman who went bankrupt 4 times, who was briefly in the public markets, and it was a disaster. And you say, what in God's name? You don't even understand trade, and you could be leading us into a trade war.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the second quarter opening of stocks is as bad as, it's the worst it's been since the Great Depression?
It is.
Since 1929? We have to put any stock in that?
Well, we have to put it in context. What's back in the market is volatility. Volatility is not necessarily a bad thing. The market was steadily climbing up for 8 years. President Trump, with pro-business policies and deregulation, supercharged it. But now, as the wheels come off, as he goes after Amazon incorrectly, one specific company, and you see him potentially getting into these trade disputes, that's when the market gets concerned. And just think for a moment. For Peter Navarro to say yesterday, the White House doesn't look at the stock market on a day-to-day basis, baloney. Every time there's a big positive day in the market, the president and his kids can't wait to tweet about it.
Yep.
And Jeff Bezos isn't the sole owner of Amazon. Who do you think owns it? Pensions, endowments, 401ks. And the company got hit yesterday because the president got out there and spread lies about it. If a normal person on the street did that, you might have the SEC going after them.
Jake